Hi, I'm Stephen DeSouza here in beautiful, sunny, warm Hollywood, and I'm very happy to be talking to you. And in an amazing coincidence, I grew up just outside of Bristol, Pennsylvania, and I'm so delighted that you guys named a city after our town. It actually wasn't a sudden decision to direct. I had directed, before I came to Hollywood, I directed a film that can be found on the fringes of the internet, that was a film festival winner. It was an early version of a stoner movie called Arnold's Wrecking Company, which preceded Cheech and Chong even. And I brought that to Hollywood as kind of a calling card. Later on I directed Tales from the Crypt, an episode which is a fan favorite called Carrying Death with Kyle MacLachlan. And as far back as Knight Rider, when I would be signed on to produce a series like Knight Rider, it was in my contract that I could direct two episodes out of the season. But what would happen as you get busy and getting organized and getting all the scripts in a row, as a responsible producer, I really could not recuse myself from 6 or 7 weeks of production on 22 episodes of a show to direct two. So even though I had contracts to direct television on almost every series I worked on, I would, fall on my samurai sword and said, look, we're too far behind. There's too many scripts to do. I really can't get out of the screenwriting, show running loop and direct. So when it came around to do this Street Fighter movie, Ed Pressman was someone I'd known already and had crossed paths with in the past. And he came to me and said, look, I know this is very short notice. I've got a meeting with these people from Capcom. They're meeting with everybody in town, looking for someone to produce the movie from this video game. You've had experience in these video game kinds of things. Can you come up with a story for this? And I said, yeah, sure, I'm very familiar with the game. In fact, every weekend I'm at the arcade with my kids, dropping quarters in the machine. When do you need this? He said, I need it tomorrow. So I literally stayed up all night coming up with a pitch for the movie, and one of the things that helped me were the materials that were sent to me from Capcom. And at that time, Capcom had a plan for the future where Bison was going to be a Bond-like villain, and they sent me like a giant blueprint of his underground lair that was underneath the temple as seen in the movie. So trying to find some variation from a tournament game, it seemed to be the tournament thing had been played out. I ran with their down the road plans of going in a Bond direction, which is what they hoped to do, and so I was right on target when I came in with a story like that. I said, okay, I will do that. I'll pull an all-nighter, but if this happens, if I pull this rabbit out of a hat, if I get these people to cancel all their meetings at all the other studios and commit to you, I want to direct the movie, because this is kind of a brutal schedule. And Ed agreed on that. The next day I went in, and it happened. Yes, I was able to successfully convince them that there should only be 7 characters, and that convincing, which I did by saying, can you guys name the 7 wonders, can you name the 7 dwarfs, there's a reason that all these historical things are 7. It's about the most people can keep in their heads. Nobody in the room can name all 7 dwarfs, by the way. They can only get up to 6. The dwarf everyone forgets is bashful. Anyway, that worked for a while, but as we went on, as the movie moved forward, they kept saying, could you add another character? Could you add another character? Could you add another character? And as late as the last month of filming, they added another character that was the Bruce Lee type character that had just been added to the game. So the picture was really, in the end, I think, overpopulated. It's a 100-minute movie. There's 15 characters. Do the arithmetic. It would have been served better with fewer characters. Interestingly enough, among the materials that Capcom gave me at the time was a long-range plan to make a line of toys. And the long-range plan of a line of toys was very much like the G.I. Joe line of toys. And in fact, they were already talking to the company that made the G.I. Joe toys, Kenner. So they were already on the road to a G.I. Joe direction. And subsequently, I see people have said that Street Fighter actually is the first G.I. Joe movie. Actually, Capcom had a lot of confidence in Ed Pressman, who has a tremendous track record of doing not just popcorn movies, but some very highly regarded, you know, art movies, Sundance movies, if you will. The biggest challenge that I recall was a kind of provincialism they had, being Japanese, and as we were trying to cast the movie, we were having all of our actors who were Asian American actors who were of Asian descent. They were getting shot down one by one by one by one, and finally somebody said to me, Japanese can be, for a sophisticated country, they can be very, very provincial. And I think in their minds, they think that only someone who is of Japanese descent can play a Japanese character. So the next time around, when we started bringing in actors, Asian American actors, we dropped their surnames from their photographs. And they're used to Madonna, people like that, actors with one name. Nobody questioned why these actors had one name. So all of a sudden, all of our actors started to get auditions because we had dropped their surnames. And then when we finally did the casting and they were sort of startled, oh my God, this actress, she's actually not of Japanese descent, she's of Chinese descent. This actor over here is of Korean descent. But by this time they'd already committed to these people being the best performers, and I remember one line one Capcom executive said, well, he's actually, I know he's not of Japanese descent, but he's handsome enough to be Japanese, so you can use him. They did want Jean-Claude Van Damme from the get-go, I guess because he resembled the Guile character. We were resistant to that idea because we said their audience is going to expect an R-rated movie with Jean-Claude. Also, he's got this accent, but of course the accent was completely unknown to them because when they see the Jean-Claude movies in Japan, he's dubbed, so that didn't mean anything to them. They figured we meant he had an American accent. And finally, they were adamant about wanting some star power, which is why we had Jean-Claude. Even given the fact that it creates an expectation for an R-rated movie, and Raul Julia, they were thrilled to get an actor of that caliber. We at the 11th hour, we still did not have our Cammy, and I was on the plane to Australia, which is where we started pre-production. And on the plane, we had the People magazine, the Australian version of People magazine, and she was on the cover. I remember she was upside down, posing with like a giant beach ball. And I said, who is this? Because she did not have the reputation in America that she had worldwide at that time. So that was really fortuitous, and she did a terrific job, and we were very impressed with her. And apparently Jean-Claude was the most impressed with her, as he subsequently has told us. Raul was a delight to work with. It reinforced my impression that actors who come out of a stage background are just the best people to work with. And Denzel Washington, Timothy Dalton, Raul Julia, these are people that bring a stage background and interpretation to their role, and also a view of how they fit into the big picture. They don't just count lines or focus on what they're doing. So for example, I did a picture with Timothy Dalton, and at one point he came to me and said, I don't think I need any dialogue in this scene at all. And I'm not sure you would get that from a lot of actors who don't come out of stage work. One thing that was a surprise, we did not know that he had recently had surgery. So he came to us looking really thin. We were kind of astonished and surprised. So he explained he had surgery recently, he had a clean bill of health, is what he told us. And so we juggled the schedule at the last minute to push his work back as far as possible, because he was drinking these weight-gaining milkshakes. He was working out with our trainer, Benny the Jet Urquidez. So with one exception, one scene, which is the scene where we first meet Dalsim, which we had to film early on, and he looks very gaunt in that. We were able to push his work back about 3 weeks into the schedule, and he got more and more robust looking as the picture went on. Tragically, as we know, he died like within a month of wrapping production. The schedule was challenging and became, close to impossible early on. We did our pre-production in Australia, in preparation for shooting location work in Thailand, and then we were going to come back to Australia. But we discovered in the worst possible way when we got to Thailand that the production facilities in Thailand were just not going to work for us. So, for example, they had a big warehouse. They said, this will work as your sound studio. But it was the rainy season and it had a tin roof. So all of the sound in that building was almost useless. We had another scene. We had to do some nighttime interiors. And we wanted to pretend that it was nighttime when it was really daytime, but there were so many holes in the walls of this building that it was like laser beams protecting Mission Impossible 3. So after 2 weeks in filming in Thailand, we were like, 9 days behind schedule. So we had to do a last-minute reinvention of our schedule and take a lot of material that was supposed to be shot in Thailand and roll it into the Australian shoot. And we left for Australia 3 days early. But we were never able to get that time back because the movie had a hard release date for Christmas. So somehow we had to squeeze those 9 days we fell behind into the remaining schedule, and it was very, very, very tough. One of the things that I did with Arnold when I worked with him on Commando and the Running Man was I brought to bear a lesson I learned working in television. One of my producers was Don Mankiewicz of the famous Hollywood Family, and we had a guest star who was an Italian actor, and he said, you should take our guest star to lunch and get him to run lines with you because you may have inadvertently given him a tongue twister. He's not a native English speaker. So when I worked with Arnold for the first time on Commando, I said, Arnold, if it's okay with you, I'd like to, work with you on your lines. I may have inadvertently given you a tongue twister. And he immediately jumped on this idea and said, that's a great idea, Stephen. I'm having all the time people not understanding that some things are hard for me to say. So I went over to his house. I'm famous for my Arnold impression. And I ran through the whole Commando script with him, and we'd get to something like he'd say, I wonder where Willy went on Wednesday. Stephen, I'm not saying I wonder where Willy, I can't change that. I'd say, how about Frank was furious on Friday? Frank was furious on Friday. I can say that. This worked so well in Commando and the Running Man that the next picture Arnold did was a picture called Raw Deal, and the screenwriter did not do that with Arnold, and the reviews, I remember, said, something's very strange going on with Arnold Schwarzenegger. His English was getting better and better in the last 2 pictures, and now it's worse. Anyway, I suggested I do this with John Claude, and John Claude said, no, I did the lines with my latest wife last night. It's perfect. I have him down there, down pat fine. So I never got him to do it with me. But then we get on the set, and he would stumble over lines. One particular, I remember, he had a line that was, see you later. So he's acting, he says, I'll see you later. I go, okay, fine, cut, move. No, Steve, stop, don't cut. I did not say later, I said ladder. I saw Tom up there on the ladder, and I said ladder instead of I said, no, you said later. No, I don't want to be embarrassed with my pronunciation. I know I said ladder. Now we get the tape, play it back, and and we play it back. He said later. Oh, my mistake. I'm sorry. My bad. I did say later, ladder, later. Okay, we'll do it again. Okay, action. Take 95. I'll see you later. So it was an ongoing thing. Also, as John Claude has since confessed, he was having some substance abuse problems at the time. In fact, the insurance company for the film made us hire a wrangler who was supposed to keep John Claude out of trouble and go around with him, but it ended up going the other way around. John Claude got the wrangler into trouble and was going out. And there were many mornings where John Claude would call in sick. Subsequently, he confessed he wasn't sick. He was, on his back because of a wild night of partying. So there were a number of times where we're ready to film and there's no John Claude, and I had to make up stuff literally on the spot for some of the other characters to do, which again, tilted the whole balance of the movie away from John Claude and split the running time up among too many characters, as I've said before. Capcom was clear that they wanted a PG-13 movie, which is why we raised a flag early on that John Claude signaled an R-rated movie. They prevailed. We spent pretty much a quarter of our budget was John Claude's salary, and we put the movie together. I had worked, although I had cut, my reputation had largely been based on R-rated movies I'd done with, with Arnold and with Bruce Willis. I had started out in television, a Knight Rider, a show I wrote and produced, was essentially PG-13 in the way it handles action, violence, stuff. So I was pretty confident I could write and direct a PG-13 movie, and that's exactly what I did. Unfortunately, the week the movie went to the Motion Picture Association of America for the rating, and as you may know from a very interesting documentary film called This Movie Is Not Yet Rated, this is an anonymous panel of like a Catholic priest and a retired librarian, a couple of school teachers, maybe a Girl Scout leader. Nobody knows who they are. They're supposedly ordinary people, but they have very thin skins. It's famous. Anyway, the week the movie went to the MPAA for a rating, there was a school shooting in America. You want to say like almost any other week. But anyway, somehow with this in their minds, with a movie they knew it was aimed at kids, my PG-13 cut went over there and they rated it R. We were kind of astonished because, we all knew what we were doing. So now we had to recut the movie, and they never give you any specific notes. There are no hard-written rules. So they just say it's too violent, it's too bloody, it's too scary. So you're working in the dark. So we start cutting away any shots with blood. We cut away any of the blows to the head or the neck that are too violent. We turn it in again. They still rated it R. Now we're in a panic. The movie's coming out in a matter of weeks. So now we recut it again, like taking the vague cues they give us, backing away, taking away some of the better punches, people falling, getting squashed. We turn it in this time. They gave us a G rating. And that's it. We had you can't go back again. So now we're like on a real dilemma because a G rating is the kiss of death. G movies are only like Disney cartoons. So with we have to lock the negative. In an act of desperation, I had Claude come back and loop a wild line. When he comes down into the underground, he's entering through an air vent into Bison's headquarters. He says, "I'm getting too old for this shit." And the reason he said that one four-letter word is that automatically gets you a PG-13, not a G. So at the last minute we said, listen, we made some changes to the soundtrack. The picture's exactly the same as you saw it, but you should look at it one more time. And they said, aha, you were trying to slip something past us. We heard that curse word, you're getting a PG-13. So we ended up with the rating we wanted, but the movie is actually way softer than it had to be a PG-13 movie. And if you look at some other PG-13 movies, whether it's Indiana Jones, The Temple of Doom, or a lot of the pictures, the G.I. Joe, the picture we've had recently, this picture, is kind of wussy, and it's wussier than what we shot. It was just bad timing for us when we got it over to the ratings board. Well, I think what went right was a kind of, eye candy, entertaining picture that worked for a young audience, because Capcom was quite aware at this time that they were aiming, for preteens. This is what they were aiming at. The film was always supposed to be funny. I know people say, is this supposed to be funny? Because it's kind of funny. The funny was deliberate. And I noticed that the estimation of the film has increased since the other Street Fighter movie came out, which was so serious and deep and meaningful. So I think, in hindsight, I think it's holding up pretty well if you understand that it really was supposed to be funny. And it was supposed to be more of a G.I. Joe movie than a tournament fighting movie. Actually, after the movie came out, I actually had a number of other offers to direct some movies, and had contracts and wrote a number of movies that are still crawling forward where I'm supposed to direct them. Only one has been produced so far. It was a movie called Possessed, starring Timothy Dalton, the ex-James Bond. It's a movie I'm very proud of, and it's along the lines of the horror material I did from Tales of the Crypt. It's a supernatural, or is it supernatural, a film. It leaves you in some doubt, and it's something you might want to check out. I have a couple of projects now that I'm supposed to direct, but it takes forever to get things going. You watch the Academy Awards, you see somebody get up there, and they hold the statue and they say, Betty, Bill, remember when we had coffee that time at Starbucks 8 years ago, and here we are finally. If you look me up on IMDb, you will see that I have 2 movies about to be made, Flash Gordon and Sergeant Rock, both based on comic book material, and they've been percolating for a dozen years. You know, they advance, they fall back. Flash Gordon was going to happen recently, but then John Carter tanked, which makes the other studio nervous about Flash Gordon, so they let it go. Now it goes to another studio. There's also an economic consideration, which is basically, you know, if I get hired to write a script, I'm working on that for 4 months. If I get hired to write a movie, I'm working on it for a year. I don't command the price for directing that I command for screenwriting, so it has to be that sweet spot where I'm available, I don't have a commitment to write, you know, can I give up 9-10 months of my life? So you know, watch this space. I have a couple of other directing projects moving forward. My next theatrical movie is called Bombay Bullet, which is another picture with Ed Pressman. It'll be my 3rd picture with Ed Pressman, and my 3rd picture with Rob Cohen of who did the original Fast and Furious movie and Triple X. So this is my 3rd picture with him. Previously, we worked as a producer, and that could be next year, unless, you know, monsoon hits India. Yes. No, 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 and no. I don't know how this story started on the internet. It's all over. I constantly see it. It's wrong. Die Hard is based on a novel called Nothing Lasts Forever by the author Roderick Thorpe, and it's a sequel to his earlier novel called The Detective, with the same cast of characters, the same hero detective, estranged from his wife, same everything. In fact, a good bar bet, if you want a bar bet being a bet, you want to make the bet, grab your money, and run out before you get beat up, is, you know that movie Die Hard 2 starring Bruce Willis? Who was the first actor to play that part and in what movie? They will say Bruce Willis in Die Hard 1. You say no, Frank Sinatra in the movie Detective, and run out real quick before they beat you up. Because Frank Sinatra actually played the character in the first book, and they had to, contractually, Fox had to offer the part that Bruce Willis played in Die Hard to Frank Sinatra because it was a sequel to the original book. Fortunately, he said, I'm too old and too rich to act anymore, otherwise they would have been chasing each other around the building on motorized scooters. So, Die Hard is based on a book. Commando, and I did write a sequel to Commando, which is floating around on the internet, and Frank Darabont, whom you know, he did some revisions on it. And in that movie, what I like to do is, in a sequel, you say, well, people change, they experience things. So in Die Hard 2, which I assume you've seen, people say, hey, I saw you on television, because presumably Bruce Willis would have been interviewed after rescuing all those people, and he's tired of the attention. So the Commando 2 sequel, we said that Arnold, after blowing up half of Los Angeles, achieved some notoriety. He retired from the Army, and by the time of Commando 2, he ran a security firm. And the plot of Commando 2 was he was hired by a big corporation to take care of their security, so their executives wouldn't be kidnapped, so no one could break into their building, so their computer room was secure, so forth and so on. So he sets it up, he hires the best, most dangerous people to be the guards of the building, and then lo and behold, it turns out the people he's working for are actually in the illegal arms business. The big corporate office is simply a front. So the end of the movie, his daughter and Cindy, the character from the first movie, who has since gone to law school, she's a lawyer, they're trapped in the building, and Arnold has to now defeat all the people he hired to be the meanest, toughest, baddest people. He has to defeat all of the security systems, you know, the guard dogs, everything. So somehow, the awareness of a movie where Arnold Schwarzenegger is trying to break into a building got conflated with Bruce Willis trapped in a building. If there's something that out there that resembled what Commando 2 was supposed to be, it would probably be the recent Stallone-Schwarzenegger movie Escape Plan, where Stallone was someone who had designed the prison. So let's put that rumor to bed. Die Hard was never Commando 2. Not only are the one-liners written by me in the screenplay, as often happens on these kind of films, after we test them, we say, you know, the humor's going so well, can we add some more jokes? So on both of those movies, and most of my films and TV shows, after we're done filming, we go in the editing room and see if we can add some more humor. And in fact, if you look at those movies carefully, you'll notice that some of the choice wisecracks are made with either Arnold or Bruce Willis with their face slightly off camera, because we found an opportunity to sneak another line in that he can record post-production. It's famously done, and for good or ill, the jokes are planned, and some of them are ad-libs. When Bruce Willis is in the air vent in Die Hard 2, I was literally underneath him in the air vent, giving him extra line after extra line after extra line, because as he's crawling through the air vents, we noticed it was really slow going, and we wanted him to talk to himself. So a lot of those lines up in the air vent were just made up on the set. Some of them are ad-libs from Bruce. Some of them are lines I'm feeding him with a walkie-talkie. He's right above our heads. So literally days before a movie is wrapped, sometimes we're sneaking in one more Arnoldism, if we may call it that. Well, I would like to say that probably my favorite scripts are the ones that haven't been shot yet, but I'm very happy with the two Die Hard movies. I'm very, very happy with 48 Hours, which is my first Hollywood picture. This Timothy Dalton movie I mentioned, which is a change of pace for me, I'm very, very pleased with that. And Ricochet, which is a movie that didn't get a lot of attention when it came out, but to my astonishment today is in textbooks and reviews of overrated movies. I pick up these books and it'll say the underrated Ricochet, and I go, yeah, underrated by you, dickwad. I remember you reviewing the newspaper. Now you got your book of overlooked movies. You're pretending you didn't dump all over it when it came out. So that's another one I'm very happy with, and I hope the next one that you're going to see. Well, if you believe IMDb, my next two movies are going to be Flash Gordon, based on the famous comic strip, and Sergeant Rock, based on the comic book. But in actuality, these movies have been crawling forward for 12 years. They're about to be made, then the actor falls out. Arnold was going to be Sergeant Rock, then it was going to be Bruce Willis. Flash Gordon had a blinking green light, then John Carter was similar. A guy goes from Earth to the other planet, so now the studio dropped that. It's in another studio. But the things that I know are moving, we think, quickly is my third picture with Ed Pressman, and also my third picture with Rob Cohen is a movie called Bombay Bullet, which is going to film in India next year. I have a miniseries for cable television, which is I have to be discreet about, but it's based on a very, very famous fantasy novel, which has been filmed a number of times and not really ever done right. It's been quite a few years since it was done, and I think we're going to nail that. These are both going to be, we hope, out next year. I'm also working on a television series based on the very famous comic book character Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, kind of a female Tarzan. The comic books have been doing pretty well. We're just switching to a new publisher now, and there's a lot of interest from the cable networks in that character. A very timely environmental superhero who also, was a hot babe. And I think all three of these things, with any luck, will be happening next year.
What's the story with you and Scarlett Johansson?
I'm tired of this constant harassment. Scarlett and I are just good friends, and this interview is over.